Please give it up for Andrew Ivimey!
Thank you very much. Let's go! Let's go! That is my new favorite expression in the entire world. It's like, let's go with like 9 O's. The more O's, the more uncomfortably excited I get every time I hear it. It awakens something inside of me. And part of it is just because I am a straight man, and when we hear let's go, we all get amped. Like, leave here tonight, walk out on the sidewalk, just scream let's go into the night. Just go out on the sidewalk and be like, let's go! At least 3 straight white dudes will come out of nowhere and be like, what are we doing? I'm in. I'll go to jail with you. You're my best friend. It is our Bucky Barnes Winter Soldier activation code. We hear let's go, and we're like, yeah, we'll kill Captain America. Let's do it. 100% on board. Absolutely. And I've been trying to figure out what it is about this expression that it's gotten so popular. Because it's been around for a long time, but it's really exploded in popularity, I feel like, the past few years. And I think I figured it out. What it is, let's go with like 9 O's. All it is just Yas Queen for straight boys. That's all it is. In any scenario where a queer person would say Yas Queen, a straight boy says let's go. Like, that's it, where it's like, I got this shirt today. Does it look good on me? It's a good shirt. Let's go! Like, it's the only way we know how to be nice to one another, all right? Queer people know how to be nice to one another. Straight guys don't. We just yell, let's go. We just yell, let's go, because we weren't raised to communicate properly, all right? I know I wasn't. I grew up in the 90s with a boomer dad, all right? In my household, growing up, I only ever saw 3 emotions expressed by a man, all right? It was aggressive, passive-aggressive, and sleepy. Those were the 3 emotions that I ever saw a man express until the year 2004. That was it. All right, and I feel like that's why boomers are so mad at anyone who's woke, is that sleepy was a valid emotion for most of their life. I remember times growing up, we're like, Dad, how are you feeling? He's like, I'm just sleepy. I'm like, you're crying. You seem depressed. No, that's just sleepy. Don't worry about that. Just sleepy. That's just the sleep coming out of your face. Don't worry about it. Just face sleep. But now I like that we're living in a more communicative world. Everyone's getting better at communication, and I think that that's nice. But I wasn't raised to communicate properly, so I still panic a bit. Like, I have friends who are better at being vulnerable than me. Like, recently, I had a buddy of mine who we were hanging out, and he was telling me, he was like, I got a performance review at work this week, and I'm a bit nervous because I'm gonna ask for a raise. All right? And what I wanted to say to him, is that you work really hard and you deserve a raise, but to ask for what you're worth in this world takes a lot of courage, and I'm proud of you, is what I wanted to say. But instead, I just looked at him and I was like, get that raise, let's go! And I flexed on him when I did it as well, because that's part of the expression when you're a straight guy. You need to let your friend know that you're supportive, but you're still a threat. You gotta flex on him. That's how poorly the straight male brain works. It's not good. We're bad at things. Oh. I do get hung up on expressions that make no sense to me. All right, one that I've been hung up on lately is the phrase echo chamber. I feel like we've all heard this at this point in society, echo chamber. For those of you who haven't, a lot of people say that the internet is an echo chamber. And what they mean when they say that, they mean that when you go online, you have your opinions, you find people with the same opinions, and you only ever get your own opinions echoed back to you on the internet. And the people who use this expression, I think, have a different internet than I have. Because that's not the internet I'm on. The internet I'm on is people arguing all the time. I've never opened up the internet and been like, everyone's getting along again. That's never been my experience. I've never seen an echo chamber. I do this for a living, so I post a lot online. Recently, I posted a clip of my stand-up comedy, and the caption under it, I said, like, hey, if you like my comedy, I have 2 albums available that you can listen to right now. And the first comment from a stranger was someone who just said, pass. my echo shouldn't sound like that. You know? I've never had my echo neg me before. You know, that's not normally. I've never been standing at the foot of a cave and been like, hello, hello, you suck. Hello, hello, you're a cock. Hello. Never had a cave hit me with that shit before. I don't know. Also, another thing that's been bothering me, I feel like no one knows how old millennials are. Is anyone else feeling this? No one knows. We could be 12 or 83. No one knows how old millennials are. I was doing a show recently. There was a drunk woman in the crowd, this boomer woman. She started yelling stuff during the show. She started getting mad. She was like, you millennials are all the same. You think you invented everything because you're too young to have any real life experience. I'm 40. I know I look like a hot 23, thank you for thinking it, but I'm 40. You know what? I had a 30-minute conversation with a friend this week about prescription shoes. I've had a prostate exam. Do you understand? I'm at a point in my life where I've had a finger in my ass for pleasure and science. I've lived a full life. All right, some ass fans in the house tonight. I like that. No, it's wild, man. The world is crazy right now as well. It's always a piece of new, crazy news to wake up to every day. Every day I have like 3 minutes of happiness before I check my phone. I wake up in the morning unaware of what's going on in the world, and I'm like, ha. And then I look at my phone, I'm like, ha, every day. Every day. Every piece of news is crazy. Trump has been talking about making Canada the 51st state, which is insanely idiotic. It's dumb. I think we all agree it makes no sense, and it would never work for a million reasons. The silliest reason, and the one that I like to think about, is that if we did become the 51st state, America is in no way ready to govern Quebec. They're not ready for Quebec. Quebec barely puts up with us. Do you understand? They would not put up, like, if we became the 51st state, the second America showed up to Quebec, and Trump was like, take down the French signs. Within a week, any car with an American license plate is a car bomb. Like, they are done. They are toast. You know, and especially conservative Americans who are angry about pronouns. They're gonna show up to Quebec mad about pronouns, and Quebec's just gonna be like, a pencil is a boy, car bomb. You're done. It's hard to be mad about people's gender in a romance language. That's tough. It's tough, man. I wasn't even sure if I should joke about that, all right? Because to pull back the curtain a little bit, to let y'all know how this works, is that when you film a special, there's a post-production period of time. So this might not come out to the general public for like 6 months, all right? And 6 months from now, no one might be talking about this shit. Like, I'm like, do I make jokes about 51st state and tariffs and being dropped into a text message thread about going to war? Do I make jokes about that? But 6 months from now, it might come out and everyone's like, we don't remember those news stories at all. The world's on to the next crazy thing. You know, 6 months from now, this might come out and everyone's like, I don't know, man, Trump's talking about uploading Switzerland into the Matrix. We don't know. I do not remember the 51st state thing. We're having a constitutional crisis as to whether Trump can actually upload people. We don't know. They did not mention that in the Constitution, but he's out here and he's just like, we put him in the goo eggs. We make him little batteries by putting him in the goo eggs. And just like that, the jokes don't make sense, you know? I'll be vulnerable with you and lay this out there. I'm a very judgmental person. I don't know if y'all noticed that about me. I'm judgmental. I'm also a hypocrite. I'm the total package. One thing that I am judgmental about, and I wish I wasn't, I wish I was a less judgmental person overall. But anytime I'm talking to someone, we all have that little judgmental voice. in the back of your head, you know, the one that's just like, oh, I don't agree with the thing that you're into. One thing I'm very judgmental about is astrology people. Astrology girlies, I know there's some of y'all here tonight. I'm sorry, you ain't hurting no one, I shouldn't judge you, but anytime I talk to you and you're like, oh, I got this crystal for $60 and it charges in the moonlight and it keeps negative Geminis out of my life. I hear that and I'm like, it keeps some people out of your life for sure. I don't know specifically Geminis, but it definitely warns a few people to stay away. Dates maybe, but anytime I hear someone say that, they're like, I spent money on a crystal. I'm like, you got scammed. That's not real. You just lost your money on a scam for a thing that isn't real. All right. But I know I'm a hypocrite as well, because I will judge someone for spending their money on that because it isn't real. But I bought crypto. You understand what an idiot I am for me to be like, your crystals aren't real, but my imaginary dog money is. The itchy and scratchy money that I have is going to pay off someday. It's a very judgmental thing of me. I don't know, I wish I would. But every time I try to open my mind about astrology, I'm always disappointed that I tried to open my mind. Anytime I try to be accepting. I had a moment recently, chatting with a friend of mine who's into astrology, and she was like, oh, me and some of my friends are getting together this weekend. We're charging our crystals. We're doing an astrology thing. And I was trying to quiet that judgmental voice in my back of my head. I was like, no one gets hurt. Just let it go. Just let it go, Andrew. No one gets hurt. And I was like, that sounds like a lovely weekend. What are y'all getting up to? And she was like, well, it's kind of a seance. And I was like, okay. And now the judgmental voice is getting louder and louder. But I'm still trying to quiet it down. I'm like, no one's getting hurt. Just be kind. And I was like, you know what? That sounds like a fine way to spend a weekend with your friends. What kind of a seance? And she was like, well, it's more like an exorcism. And you know when you try to open your mind and then you reach a point in a conversation where you're like, I should have judged you 3 things ago. Once we got to exorcism, I was like, what kind of exorcism? And she was like, well, we're having an exorcism for my friend's vagina. It has been possessed, and that's why she cheated on her boyfriend 3 times. And at that point, I was like, I think someone is actually getting hurt here. Now that I think about it, I was right to judge this. This is not right. Not right. I don't want anyone to get hurt or taken advantage of. It happens sometimes with astrology, different group of astrology friends I was chatting with recently. I've got a friend of mine. She's into astrology, and you need to know this about her. She does not have hands. She was born without hands, and she's into astrology. And recently, we were having a group hang. We were driving to another city, and she was saying how she wants to fall in love this year. And one of our other astrology friends in the car, she was like, hey, I know just the crystal shop to help you out with that. Let's get them on the phone. They'll hook you up. We get them on the phone, on speakerphone in the car, and she's explaining to the crystal shop, she's like, I'm looking for love. And this guy's like, I got just the crystal for you. It's perfect. It lets the universe know that you're open to love. What you got to do, you got to charge it in the moonlight. You've always got to charge this shit in the moonlight. They never come pre-charged for some reason. I'm like, you couldn't have put that fucker out back last week before you tried to sell it? You know? He's like, you got to charge it in the moonlight. And he's like, and how you activate it is that for 1 hour every day, you have to hold it tightly in your left hand. Squeeze it tightly in your left hand 1 hour a day. It's what sends the energy to your heart and lets the universe know that you're ready for love. And then she tells him, she's like, I actually don't have hands. And then there was the longest pause you've ever heard in any human conversation. And after that long pause, the guy goes, you can just put it in your pocket. It does the same thing. And that man is my hero. That man is my hero. I do think that everything is getting way too expensive in life right now. I feel like we can all feel this. Everything is way too expensive. A night out is too expensive. This is pretty reasonable, all things considered. Stand-up comedy is a pretty affordable night out. Not all nights are as affordable. I had some friends last year who went to the Taylor Swift concert. Yeah, that is an expensive night out, but they got a deal. What happened was, a friend of mine his wife, and their 2 daughters. They're part of the Taylor Swift fan club, and they won a chance to get 4 tickets at face value. So they got 4 $70 tickets to Taylor Swift, which is huge. He had that like proud dad. You know when a dad gets a deal? He had that, like, he acted like he found Taylor Swift tickets, like, in the lineup at Winners. Like, that was the energy. He was like, I was in line at Winners. They were right there. That's a steal of a deal. That's great. Socks and Taylor Swift tickets? Sure. And he was so proud of it until he looked up what these tickets were reselling for. And these tickets were reselling for about $12,000 a ticket. And he still went. His daughters really wanted to see Taylor. So they still went, but now that he knew the potential money he's lost out on the resale market, he now had the 1,000-yard stare of a Vietnam vet all weekend. Like, there were times where we met up for lunch before the concert, and his 12-year-old daughter was like, Dad, when I grow up, I want to be a teacher. And he was just like, you don't have education money in your future. I need you to know that. It was Taylor or education. Remember that when you rent for life. Hope you like Taylor. It's crazy expensive. And it was a scary weekend when Taylor Swift was here in Toronto. I will tell you this. I would rather get into a bar fight with a UFC fighter than piss off a 13-year-old girl who's into Taylor Swift. They scare the shit out of me. They are a terrifying group of people. The weekend of the concert, I was downtown. I bumped into this girl, about 13 years old, clearly headed to Taylor. She had like a pink jacket with like the tassels, you know, the fringe hanging down. She had that on from that era of Taylor. And I bumped into her and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And she looked up at me, and with this voice, she looked up at me and went, watch where you're going. I'm trying to get to Taylor. Okay. And the mom grabbed the daughter and was like, I'm so sorry, and leaned down and was like, Stephanie, you have a cold. We have to go get you medicine before the concert. And the daughter waved it off and went, no, I don't want a foggy medicine brain when I'm seeing Taylor. Which is terrifying. Because when you have a pink jacket with tassels and that voice, you come off as less Taylor Swift and more Macho Man Randy Savage kind of an energy. This was a daughter who was just like, if Hulkamania gets between me and Taylor, I'm gonna body slam him into last year's SummerSlam. Scary. Scary shit. But everything is expensive. I've got an expensive month coming up. I am getting married next week. Cheers. Thank you very much. I'm very excited. It is great. I'm head over heels in love, but it is expensive getting married. We're having a modest wedding too, but the expenses add up quick. One thing that is fun though, when you're getting married, is that it's a fun way to find out how much money all of your friends make. All right, because one thing that I did is I asked for recommendations on wedding stuff on my social media. Recently, I was looking for the wedding rings, so I put out on my Facebook and Instagram, I was like, hey, does anyone have recommendations for a good jeweler I should go to get wedding rings? And I found out that some of my friends are secretly rich. Because they recommended some jewelers I could not afford. Like places that I went to, and even to get in, I had to go through 2 airlock doors. Like it was a spaceship or the shop from Uncut Gems. Like it was bad. Either way, the death rate's too high. And I got in to this expensive one, and I sat down, and this one jeweler, he took out a velvet bag of diamonds, and he poured it on the table. And he went, let's start by hand selecting your diamonds and learning their story. And at that point, I stood up and I was just like, we're not in the same place in life. I need you to know that. I'm gonna get out of here. I don't really have velvet bag of diamond money right now. I'm intimidated by Crown Royal. I'm not in a good velvet bag place in life. Can't be messing with velvet bags of diamonds. But what was more insulting was I had some friends recommend places based on what they thought my income was. And not a word of a lie, I got a message from a friend that said, hey, don't count them out. They got some pretty good rings at Claire's. Claire's? I know Canadian entertainment is rough, but I need y'all to know I'm doing better than Claire's money right now in life. I don't want to be getting my wedding ring anywhere where a 14-year-old is getting her ears pierced that day, you know? I'm doing a little bit better than that, I like to think. But it's exciting to be getting married, and it's with a woman. I feel the need to say, because I have weird vibes. I have the vibes that I call, I'm what I call small town gay, big city straight, is kind of the energy that I bring to the party. Kind of in between. I grew up, I was born and raised in St. John's, Newfoundland, and like growing up in Newfoundland, it was like I would wear like a messenger bag, and people would be like, look at his purse, he's gay. And then I moved to Toronto, and I was like, I like camping, and everyone's like, that's the straightest man we have here, that's interesting. Interesting tonal shift. It's been weird though. For a lot of my life, I have been frequently asked the question, are you sure you're not gay? And I've been asked it by women I'm dating at the time, which is troubling. But here's when I've been asked that question, all right? Is that when I was dating, when I was single and dating, all right? I like to cook, I'm a good cook, maybe I'd make a meal on a date, all right? Women would see that and be like, wow, are you sure you're not gay? All right, I keep a very clean and tidy home. Women would see that and be like, wow, are you sure you're not gay? You know, I like clothes shopping and dressing myself. Women would see that and be like, wow, are you sure you're not gay? And you hear that enough, and you start questioning yourself. And I'm like, am I sure I'm not gay? What's going on here? And then at some point, I saw another dick in real life, and I was like, that ain't it. No, what is that? No. Penis is not a good thing. It's not good. It's not good. Every vagina is different in the way that every sunset is different. It's a little bit beautiful in its own perfect kind of way. And every dick is different in the way that every xenomorph in each Alien film is a little bit different. It's a little bit different in a way that's like, what have they done this time? Shouldn't be that veiny. But it did make me realize something, all right? Being frequently asked, are you sure you're not gay in those scenarios? I don't know if you noticed, but in the 3 scenarios I just mentioned, it was cooking, cleaning, clothes, literally food, shelter, and clothing. The 3 necessities to human life was what made women be like, are you sure you're not gay? And that's what made me realize I'm not gay, it's just that the standard for straight men is way too low. If you hit food, shelter, and clothing, women are impressed. That means that anytime I showed up to a date without like an open wound, women were like, whoa, slow down, Queer Eye, where'd you learn all this? No gangrene? What the hell? You're crazy. But I have a wonderfully supportive partner as well, which just makes things more confusing sometimes. One thing I did last year for the first time ever is last year I wore a dress for the first time. I was working a charity event called Red Dress Day or Dress Red Day, depending on how you do it. And it's a charity event that's raising money for people who are living with HIV and AIDS. And they encourage people to, and we raised a bunch of money for people who are living with HIV and AIDS. Thank you. I am a hero, you're right to think it. But they encourage working this event that I wear a dress and pick up a dress. So I picked up a dress, and I'd never worn one before. And I went to pick it up, and my wonderfully supportive partner, she said to me, and these words kind of haunt me. I was like, I'm gonna go pick up a dress today. And she said, do you think that this will awaken anything inside you? Have you ever felt supported to the point that you could just ruin your life? You know what I mean? Like, do you think this will awaken anything inside of you? And she came with me to get this dress, and I tried it on. And I was like, I look not too bad in this. And she was like, does it awaken anything inside of you, though? And I was like, it doesn't have pockets. even if it did awaken anything inside of me, where would I store that thing? I don't have pockets. I need pockets if I'm gonna store a new thing in my life. I don't know, but I'm a very naive person because I am a straight man. I'm very naive about sexuality a lot of the time. A lot of straight guys are. I was doing a show recently, and there were 3 people in the front row who were in a throuple, and they were wonderful people. We chatted a bit during the show, and after the show, as happens a lot, because sometimes I can give off very bro energy, there was a random guy from the show who came up to me, and he was like, "Hey, man, that throuple in the front row, that was crazy, huh?" And I was like, yeah, it was a fun night. And he was like, "No, that's wild." He was like, "That's the dream, huh?" And I was like, "If it's your dream, it's the dream, yeah." We all got different dreams, I don't know. I got one where I'm falling. What do I do with that? And he was like, "But that's the dream. Think about it." He was like, "That means that on any given night, you could have an argument with your woman." And you know when someone says something and you're like, "We're not gonna be friends." Anytime a guy says "my woman," I'm like, "Thank you for letting me know not to invest in this friendship." He was like, "You could have an argument with your woman and be like, 'I don't need this,' and then go be with your other woman." And I was like, "I don't think you understand how polyamory works. It requires twice as much communication, not 0. You know? I think what you're describing is a night where you get into an argument with a second woman. You're describing a night where you find out you're the problem. And that actually might be helpful, I think, for you and for your life. I'm a weird friend. I'm a weird person and a weird friend. I try to be the friend who is helpful in a different way. Recently, I had a friend of mine who lives in a different city, and she broke both of her arms in a bicycle accident. And that's rough. Bicycle accident, broke both of her arms, and me and a bunch of our friends were like, "How are we gonna help her right now? She's in a different city." And a bunch of friends were like chipping in on Uber Eats gift cards, because it's like, obviously, like you can't cook for yourself, so let's help make sure food's taken care of. But I try to be the different friend, the one who's like, I'm gonna think of the thing that other people didn't think of to help you out. And I thought I came up with it. And I messaged her and I was like, "Hey, do you have a bidet?" Pretty smart, I think. A lot of you haven't thought about what you're gonna do if you break both your arms, and I hope you have a bidet. Because you can't be Frankensteining and then still get back there, all right? So I messaged her, and I'm like, "Do you have a bidet?" And she was like, "No, I don't have a bidet." What an interesting question. And I was like, "Do you have anyone coming to stay with you and help you?" And she was like, "Yeah, my parents are coming to stay with me for a while." And I was like, "Cool, do you think your dad could install a bidet?" And she was like, "Yeah, I guess he could." And I was like, "Well, guess what? I just ordered you a bidet. It's gonna be there tomorrow. If your dad has any questions about setting it up, tell him to give me a call." She was like, "Thanks, I guess." And that should have been a warning sign to me that I've misread the scenario. And it wasn't until a week later, I'm messaging with her, and I'm like, "Hey, how's the healing process going? How are you doing?" And I was like, "When are the casts coming off?" She was like, "What casts?" And I was like, "Well, you broke both of your arms. The casts, you're Frankensteining." And she was like, "No, it's a hairline fracture. I can still bend my arms. I'm just on painkillers and I'm supposed to take it easy." And I was like, "What'd you think all that bidet stuff was about?" She was like, "I just thought you were nice but weird." Like, that is kind of my energy. And you know when you find out new information and you go back through a text message thread and it changes the context of everything? Where now with this information, I looked back and it was me being like, do you own a bidet? No, I don't. What an interesting question. Can your dad install a bidet? I guess he could. I've just bought you a bidet. Thanks, I guess. I'm a good friend. A very good friend. I have a lot of vibes about me that I don't love. I have strong cop energy, and I wish I did not have that. Strong cop energy. Anytime I wear a backpack, I'm rocking both of those straps with both hands. Paunch out. Is everything all right here, sir? You doing all right? That's kind of the energy. I look like my first words were, is everything all right here, ma'am? Strong cop energy. And because of this, I've been trying to lean into it a little bit because on top of doing stand-up comedy, I'm also an actor. All right, and I got a lot of auditions for roles for cop, military guy, things like that. Nothing super exciting, like you haven't seen me in any action movies or anything. I'm not in a John Wick or anything like that. But like the role of cop number 4 on Law and Order Toronto is a role that I auditioned for and didn't get. Fuck you, Law and Order Toronto. Unless the casting director is watching this, in which case, get at me, get at me, get at me. But because of the fact that I look like a cop, I've been trying to lean into it and I want to get more acting work doing it. So last year I did kind of a fun experience. I went out and I got my firearms license. Got my Canadian firearms license, which was a trip. It was a very interesting thing to do. And I got it because like, I'm not gonna be firing real guns on set. It's gonna be a rubber gun. But if you know how to hold a real gun, they know that you can hold a rubber gun and not look like an idiot when you're doing so on camera, right? And it was really interesting as someone who's never considered himself like a gun guy to go through the process to go get the firearms license. First of all, Canada has some great firearms restrictions. I really like some of the laws that we have. I don't know if you know this, but in Canada, you cannot get your firearms license if you have been fired, bankrupt, or divorced in the past year. And I think that that's an awesome restriction. I think that rules. I like the idea of that because if you just got divorced and your next thought is, I should get a gun. I like the idea of the government being like, why don't you take a knee for a year and come back to us? We're not saying you can never get a gun, but wait till you get over Deborah. Like that. I think more businesses should have that model. I've had friends buy interesting coats after a divorce, and I'm like, they shouldn't have let you do that. It doesn't work. Convertible for you, Brian? I don't think so. So it was a good restriction, and there's a lot of good stuff around Canadian gun regulation. Like, I liked doing the course. It was a very interesting experience, because as someone who wasn't a gun guy, I had all these preconceived notions as to what I thought our firearms instructor was gonna be. I thought he was gonna be this gun guy that was gonna be every gun guy I'd ever seen on television. And he showed up, and he was that. Full camo, downtown Toronto. I'm like, I can see you. Full camo, and he had a name tag on because he was our instructor. And I'm like, do you want to be perceived or not? These are very mixed messages. Camo with a name tag is very interesting. And he was an interesting guy as well. He was an interesting guy. He was one of these people who he would say, he's like, I don't mean to go off on a political tangent. And you know when someone says that, they're about to say some of the most buck-wild political things you've ever heard in your entire life? And he would say a couple normal things followed by an insane thing. And I couldn't get a read on him. There was one point during the class, we were talking about ammunition law. And he was like, he's like, the law says you are allowed to own a reasonable amount of ammunition. He's like, that's what the law says. There's no number associated with it. It says reasonable amount. And he's like, that's a problem with this law and with our society, is that it allows for discrimination. He's like, maybe you're a white person in a small town and your cousin's a cop. You can own 50,000 rounds of ammunition, and that's reasonable. because your cousin cop is going to say it's cool. Or maybe you're a minority being discriminated against, and you can own 100 rounds of ammunition, and a cop can say that's not reasonable, and you can be arrested. And so it leaves it to a cop or a judge to decide whether or not they want to arrest you that day. And that's a problem with our society. And I was like, this dude is smart. He's speaking truth. I really like where he's coming from. And he followed that up with, and that's why I should be allowed to own grenades. It's like, why is that why you should be allowed to own grenades? And he's like, well, then I could police my own neighborhood. I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. Surprised you have your license. You have strong, recently divorced energy about you. That's... How many grenades should you be allowed to own? Oh, a reasonable amount? Okay. I feel like we've circled back on its own thing. I don't know. It was a very interesting process, too, because even the paperwork for this, the paperwork to get your firearms license, this is the only time I have ever had a piece of Canadian paperwork ask me this. Because I filled out, like you fill out passport, driver's license, all these other things. A lot of the times they will ask for the information of your partner or your spouse, your wife, your significant other. This is the only time I ever saw this on a government form. It asked for the contact information of my conjugal partner. I've never had the government ask me if I fuck before. And I found that fun. I was like, oh, that's a fun way to weed out incels. That's good. I like that. And I did realize later why it was, is that I'm like, oh, they don't care about our tax status or our marital status. They called her, and they want to know your conjugal partner, because basically they want to call up whoever you're sleeping with and be like, is it cool if we give him a gun? And she's like, yeah, give him the gun. They're like, cool, that's all we needed to know. That's good. It's cool that he fucks. Like, I don't know what they say. I wasn't on the call. How's that D, though? Click. I don't know. You know what the government's like. I will leave you with this. Last year was also a very expensive year for me. Last year, I decided to get my teeth fixed, which I don't know if any of y'all have been messing with dental work. It is expensive. Last year I had 7 cavities replaced. I had a root canal, a crown, and I got Invisalign last year. All told, last year my teeth cost me about $16,000. Yeah, I got a lightly used Honda Civic in my mouth right now, which is wild. And when I was filling out my taxes this year, it was enough money that filling out my taxes this year, I was using an online tax software, and there's a slot for miscellaneous medical expenses, which I don't know if you know, you can put dental and claim dental under there. And I put that amount of dental in, and not a word of a lie, I got a pop-up that said, with this amount of miscellaneous medical expenses, you should look into applying for disability. And that's a blow to the old ego, y'all. Because I knew my teeth were bad, but I didn't know my teeth were disabled. Are you kidding me? I could have been parking in handicap spots this past year, just getting out. People are like, you can't park there. I smile, and they're like, nah, his teeth are janky. It's cool. He can park there. He can park there. And it costs a lot because I don't have good insurance. All right? But I'm happy to be at a point in my life where I have any insurance. This is why it costs so much, was that I didn't take care of my teeth for almost 20 years. Like, grew up with not a lot of money. I've been a freelance artist doing this for 20 years. There's no insurance. There's not a lot of extra cash flow. But a couple of years ago, it was like things started to go a little bit better. I'm in the actors union. I got a season of a TV show. I got bumped up to silver dental status. And I was like, ooh, silver. Ooh, tell me more, Silver Daddy. And I was so excited to have a little extra cash and have a little bit of insurance. And I went in to get all of this done. And I handed my insurance information to the receptionist at the desk. And she put in the information. And she looked up at me and she went, you know this is bad insurance, right? And what I wanted to say to her was that I've worked so hard. I have busted my ass for 20 years to get any insurance, to get any extra cash, and also the courage it takes to go to the dentist when you haven't been there in 20 years. Like, I had to overcome a whole mental battle on top of the financial battle, on top of the career battle, to even get in through this door to the dentist's office today. Do you realize how much courage and power that took from every fiber of my being? I'm proud of myself to be here today, is what I wanted to say. But instead, I just looked at her, I was like, let's fix these teeth, let's go! Thank you very much.
Let's go! Hey, what are we doing?
Hey, let's go to a bar.
Yeah, any bar will do. Yeah.